And officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. You and I almost got too much into it prior to recording. We were getting into the goods, and I'm like, we got to hit record before the people miss out on this stuff. So I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time, and this is going to be a fun episode, man.
I appreciate being on, and honestly, anything with wealth, I get really excited. So that's probably why when I jump on, I'm like, let's go. So With that being said, I hope to bring a lot of value to your audience. We can talk about anything and everything because my hands are in a lot of things. And so we can talk about that too, because there are some lessons with that.
Yeah,
Corey, take it away, man.
There's a ton to get into. So, but for people that don't know you, you just mentioned you're in San Francisco. I want to talk. I know you're into flipping homes. You buy rentals. You make money. That's it's a cool tagline. But talk to me maybe before all this came into play. Like, how did you get into the entrepreneurial real estate investing? How did that world come into? How did it meet with you?
Yeah, I promise not to take it too far back, but I have to bring it up. So my mom and dad and my grandma, they met here, but they were immigrants from Vietnam. And as you know, Vietnam, with the war, they supported the Americans. So when everything collapsed, they fled the country, came here with nothing. My grandma was actually a very good business person. And I always joke with my team and said that, man, if we had won the war, I'd be a spoiled, rich trust fund kid, right? But needless to say, they came here, lost everything, had to start over. And, I can't say they made it, but they made it with the family and the love and the stories. And so the stories that I heard growing up, I'm like, I'm going to make it back. But also on top of it, you get to see your parents work 14, 15, 16 hours a day, just trying to make it. I grew up in the streets of Oakland. My mom's nail shop was actually over there on Fruitvale. And so if you don't know Fruitvale, it's a predominantly Latino community. It's kind of borderline the hood.
Yep.
Right. Yep. But that taught me a lot. It taught me the hustle. It taught me the bustle. And that's what I had kind of in me, the fire. And so I'm very lucky that I had the fire. And then, the American dream back then was to own properties, to buy real estate, right? That's every person's American dream probably back then. Now it's probably crypto and all the other stuff that's happening, right? But that's kind of where it started. And then fast forward, I had a couple of things that happened in my life that really kind of fueled the fire and tested the mindset and tested me. And one of it being that my dad got cancer the first time when I was about 11, maybe 10 or 11. And then luckily he was able to fight it until like about another 6 or 7 or 8 years. And then it came back. And so at that time, I was probably 18 when he went into the hospital. He had a trach down his throat and he didn't make it, put it that way. But I look at that like, okay, well, life can either happen to you or for you, right? And it comes down to mindset. And I said, you know what? This happened for me. Happened for me because now I have to become the man. I have to support my mom, and my brothers did the same thing. I'm very fortunate. My brothers do very well as well. And so we were able to fight and we were able to make it, right? In my definition, make it is we retired my mom. When my grandma got sick, she lived to about 105. She just passed away, but we had round the clock, basically a care service. My mom was always there, but she's now 70 years old. My grandma is 105. How strong can she be? How much can she help? And so we were able to provide all that financially and also be there physically. So that's a little bit about me when it comes to like what makes me tick and why I will never stop and why I will continue to help. A lot of the stuff that my grandma has taught me was that you got to help people. And one of the ways she did that was when Vietnam collapsed, she was very wealthy. She actually had a lot of gold bars. And so she gave every single person in her little community, and it ended up being a lot of people, money to flee. And it was so funny because growing up, I used to have uncles, and I put quotation marks, uncles and aunties come visit all the time. And like, that's your uncle, that's your uncle. And I'm like, how the hell do I have so many uncles? But then I later realized that it was because she helped them and they were forever in debt to her, right? And so even at an old age, she was never alone. And so that taught me something. It taught me like, you got to give. You cannot just take from the world. You have to give, and with the intention of never getting anything back. But I promise you, the world, it knows and it remembers. And so seeing that, again, built kind of my internal beliefs and all that stuff. Now, there were some things that I had to break. Obviously, we grew up in the hood, and so money wasn't something that we had. And, you got to make sure you follow the right path, because there were other paths that led down a different road, right? That
Yeah.
that were probably still lucrative, but maybe illegal. And
Yeah.
so that's a little bit about me. But knowing
Love it.
that the real estate was the goal, I graduated college. That was my dad's dying wish. So I finished UC San Diego. I'm a terrible student. I only graduated because I was today I learned that I'm actually pretty good at delegating, right? And building teams. But back then you probably would call me a cheater, right? That's how college is. You cheat in college, but today that's called delegation. So I got my real estate license and I came out 21 years old, started to do real estate. I wasn't very successful. By no means. Like I wasn't one of those rookie of the year doing big deals. I made like 30 grand my first year, and I just stuck with it. Right. So fast forward, when you're in real estate, and then you have that belief in you that, hey, we're going to build wealth through owning real estate. Guess what? You always keep that in your mind. And so when you find good deals, you try to buy them. And that's the short version of it. And I just started to buy, and then I started to dabble into other businesses. In 2016, I still always did real estate. I'm still licensed. I don't really practice too much anymore. I do hand it off to my team a lot, but I started a coffee shop in 2016. I started a virtual assistant company in 2017. I still have both those companies today, and they do very well. And then we just continue to stack and build, right?
Love it.
And I will say one thing: if it weren't for the real estate, the rental portfolio that I constantly put money back into, I would have never had the confidence or the foundation to do everything that I do today. Right.
Yep.
And that's why I always tell people, I'm like, you need to have a strong foundation. And sometimes it's not a business, but it's that, that wealth building tool, which can be whatever you want it to be. But for me, it was rental properties.
Love
And
it.
so today, my portfolio does provide me a substantial amount to where I can live. And if I fail at all the other businesses, we'll be okay. My wife and kids will be okay.
So I wanted to get into a lot of this here. I mean, let's maybe start with the real estate. And by the way, I love when people say like things happen for me instead of to me. I mean, a lot of it can be like, oh, I lost this deal, like, okay, I can see where you could get that, but like to have it be related to like your family, like that's even bigger. So I just want to commend you for that. Like, I think it's amazing to have that mentality. I'm sure it wasn't always that way, but
I mean, if you can do it with a big situation, when those little things happen, and in business, this, like even owning rental properties, nothing goes 100% your way. But if you can handle that, you can handle this. And if you can handle this, God, the sky's the limit.
So if you've ever tried getting a mortgage, which I'm sure many of you have, you know how daunting and discouraging it can be of a process. The slow process, paperwork, being told no without any real explanation. One time we were even told that taking out a home equity line of credit on an investment property wasn't even possible. So that all changed when we were introduced to Neo Home Loans. What makes Neo different is literally how they approach lending. They're not just checking the boxes, they're legit problem solvers. They look at your entire financial picture and explore multiple angles, literally until they find a strategy that works. They helped us reposition our portfolio, pull out lines of credits to scale, and structure everything for long-term growth. And on top of that, their rates were some of the most competitive that we've seen. They just literally did whatever it takes to find a solution. For us, Neo has become our liability advisor. The same way you have a financial advisor on the asset side for the liabilities. If you're serious about building wealth through real estate, it's worth sitting down with them and getting your lending strategy dialed in, without a doubt. I mean, you're 100% right. So I want to talk about you building that rental portfolio. Before we started chatting, and there's a lot of people listening that are like, I live in San Fran, I live in New York, I live in LA, I can't buy in my backyard. And you know what? Like, I'm not here to tell you that that's not the truth. At least starting, it is very difficult. I would buy a house hack anywhere you can that's close to where you live, if possible. But if not, you started to buy out of state, and you were mentioning you were buying in Alabama. So I'm curious about your strategy there and like how you started that, and you got the capital, I guess, from selling homes, and then you deployed it into the rental portfolio. Like, how'd you get out to Alabama?
I always say you have to have active income. People always want to go the passive route too fast, too soon. But I mean, this is real estate. Now, there are ways to do it. There's there's creative financing, sure, right? But to do that, it also is a full-time job. You have to get very savvy. You have to call a lot of people, and you got to probably make a lot of offers for you to find a deal. But I try to make things simple. and I talk to a lot of W-2 earners that make a lot. I'm obviously in the Silicon Valley area, so people make a lot of money, but sometimes not enough to buy in California. And so, long story short, the idea of buying out in Alabama stemmed because I do own a real estate brokerage, and we have over 70 agents today, 5 offices. And I was like, well, you guys need to buy real estate. Well, the problem becomes like, okay, even if you buy something in today's climate, you're not going to cash flow because the rates are too high and our purchase price is way too high and the rentals aren't really there to support it. So I had to come up with something. I was like, man, I got to make it like find a strategy that will work for them. Like I'm obviously blessed. I have businesses, so I can buy things in California and make it work. But again, paying it forward, what my grandma taught me, like if the more people you can help, like it's just going to pay you back tenfold. So I went out to Alabama. I actually went out to Cleveland first. I flew out to Cleveland.
It's funny. I've been to Cleveland. I've been to Cleveland too, and that was my first out of state experience. I decided to not invest there, and it's different today. This was in 2018, but I'm curious on your take and if you figured the same thing.
So I was looking at a city called a little area called Lakewood, right? A bunch of duplexes, and at the time, this was maybe 2 years ago. You were able to pick them up for around like 220, 230, and then the cash flow. I'm sorry, not the cash flow. The rents would be right around the 1% rule, right?
Yeah. By the way, that number for a duplex that's in a nicer area of Cleveland. I would think
Lakewood pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. It's safe. I walked the streets. I wasn't like scared or anything like that. But what happened was I came back and I tried writing offers, and I guess the market was picking up because I kept losing. And then now that neighborhood is trading for like 320, 330, which is great. I would have had a lot of equity, right? But I said, okay, this is too hard because I couldn't systematize it. And so I was like, okay, well, let's look at other states. And then I kind of stumbled upon Montgomery, Alabama, and it wasn't as competitive. The agents out there move a little slower, which is nice because if you have a W-2 job, you're not able to sit on your computer and just like work quickly, right? That was a key. So I bought 3. I think I bought 3 right off the bat. I think one for $87,000, one for $95,000, and one for $110,000. I just bought all 3. I said, we're going to try this out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, whoop-de-doo. Like I can stomach the loss, right? But I'm gonna learn. And again, that probably leads down to my style is that I shoot first and I adjust later. Probably not always the smartest thing, but I do it with money I can lose. Basically, is how I look at it. And with real estate, if the longer you hold something, you'll be okay.
Yep, forgiving.
And I bought 3, and it worked. I said, "Oh shit!" I'm like, "Okay, this is pretty easy." And then check this out. This is the best part. Literally 5 months later, so I bought it in December. And I got the tax write-offs, not as much because, back then I think it was like 70% or 80% bonus depreciation or maybe even 60. I don't remember. But then 5 months later, like everything around it started selling for 120, 125, 130. I did a refinance. So I got all my money out. I'm in these properties for $0 and I'm making like $300-400 each. Actually, some of them are like $500. And then I did the Section 8 route and it's been doing great. And so I ended up buying a bunch more just to prove the theory, to share the story. And then lo and behold, a couple of our agents started to buy because now it's affordable. $30,000. I mean, that you can go either buy a Honda Civic or go buy a property. And then that's what they started doing. And then you know how realtors are. We're real estate professionals. So now we can do the cost segregation study, get the depreciation, save on our taxes, put more money back in our pockets, and still have a property that will go up in value and create you cash flow. And ultimately, create you wealth.
Yep, 100%. So I love the fact that you were able to go out of state. I think that it's a testament that you don't need to live in this market to go invest there. What do you think?
I've never been to, by the way. I said, because Cleveland was such a pain for me to get to. I said, you know what? Forget it. I trust FaceTime. I trust the reviews from the realtor. I trust my property managers, and there's a checks and balance. So if I have a question, I ask this person. And if there's a discrepancy, then I walk away from the property. Right.
Yeah.
But if, you got your team and if all 3 or all 2 say, hey, this is great, I'm like, pull the trigger. Let's buy it.
Love it. I think that's a great strategy for a lot of people that are listening. They're even trying to start. We live in a country where you can buy like I own property in Vermont. I own property in New Hampshire. I have been there, obviously, because I'm doing a little bit more on the due diligence side of like the general partnership, but like I don't need to live there to buy there. I live in Philadelphia. So I think people need to expand outside of like the feel and the touch. Like you don't need to go fix the toilets. You don't need to go do all this stuff because then you're just a management company as opposed to a business owner. And I think that's where people kind of need to see the separation. So I want to talk about the flipping aspect of what you do too. So you're buying the rentals for the long-term wealth, right? No one's writing home about $300 or $500 a month, but if you're getting that consistently and the properties are going up in value, you're creating that legacy for yourself. But the flipping's active. So are you flipping in your backyard or are you also doing long distance flipping?
I am flipping in my backyard.
I figured that would be a little bit easier to do with that than flip from across the country, but talk to me about that.
Now, I do know people that flip across the country and they do it very well, but you do have to, it is a little bit trickier. So my thing was, why make it harder for myself? Why not just flip here? Right. And so I've been flipping since 2017. So going on right around 8 years. I stumbled upon it because as a realtor back then, used to represent flippers, right? You find a good deal, you find an investor, they do all the work and they let you list it back. Well, I used to attend every single closing table, and I remember this clear as day. I did all the work. I found another property. I even helped them design it, market it, the whole shebang. You know, us realtors, we do it all. And I go through the settlement statement, which is basically like what they're going to make. It shows my debit. Okay. Brian Tran, $25,000 commission. I'm like, yeah, 25,000. I go to the bottom and he's making $250,000. I'm like, what the? Like he made 10 times what I made and did less work, to be honest with you, because he wasn't there. He had the contractors. They did everything. And then I came in and I nitpicked and then I marketed it, right? And I was like, okay, I got to be on that side because he sat across from me. I was like, I got to be on your side, not my side. And so that's where it stemmed from. And then I just said, you know what, I'm going to go all in because you kind of already know what you're doing. You're already finding deals. You're already, know what designs work because you're selling these properties. You know what looks good. And then it just became a matter of, okay, well, how do you come up with the money? And then how do you find good contractors? And then that's kind of where I just figured it out. And I made mistakes. It wasn't perfect. But guess what? I went in thinking I was going to make $250,000. Well, the market in San Francisco was exploding at the time. I ended up making $500,000. And I said, done.
On one flip.
One flip. Took 7 months.
Get into this
7-8 months.
When we before we started hitting record, you mentioned to me like some of the buttons that you press, and that was like I hired a mentor, I hired a coach. Like, did you go into this at the beginning blind and then say, "Oh shit, I now need a coach," or did you say, "I need to hire somebody off the bat to teach me how to do this"? Because the chances of somebody I want people to hear this. The chances of you making $500,000 on your first flip,
it's harder now.
Yeah, it's probably pretty slim. But you did it. So was that going to hire a coach? Was that following somebody around? Like, or did you just like do it all yourself in the beginning?
So at the time, there weren't as many like coaching programs as there are today, right? I think that's a new thing that kind of happened in 2020 or so. But back then, it was more like, okay, well, I represented that client. Let me ask them for some advice, and they would, if they had time, they would help me out. But it wasn't I kind of had to go to multiple people to try to piece it together, right? And that's doable, but yeah, if somebody was like one guy that can help me out, I would have just went to one person because like I said, I did make mistakes. And these guys were like clients and acquaintances, so they weren't like there to coach me. They'd be like, yo, call this person, he's a hard money lender. But they didn't tell me like, hey, what rate should I expect? This, right, that. Like I had to kind of do all that stuff myself. And then like when it came to the contractors, I used to go to Lowe's all the time, which is stupid. Like it takes so much time. They'd be like, oh, we need this, we need that, we're missing this piece of tile. And so, like I said, it took me a lot longer. I probably could have shaved 2 months on the construction. I probably could have done a lot of things better, but whatever, you go in and you adjust later. But I do recommend that in today's market, especially the Bay Area, you do want to have somebody it's a little bit more savvy because those margins, those $500,000 margins, they're not there anymore. The market, there is a lot of other flippers. So those margins have gone down. So which means you have less room for error. And so I say, find a mentor, right? Don't get ripped off on your points and your hard money. Don't get ripped off on the contractors. And don't get ripped off on materials because like I buy most. I'm flipping 1.5, 2.5, $3 million homes, and I'm using Floor and Decor. Believe it or not, right? You just got to know what to pick.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to ask you about the difference. So this episode will be out in 2026. So I want to ask you
Okay.
about the difference of what you're seeing. Like maybe if you could run me through start to finish a deal, how you would find a flip these days, right? Are you going direct to sell? Like how the acquisition strategy,
Sure.
and then just if you want to give me an example of a number, that's totally fine too. But if you could just even give me round numbers, hey, if I know if I could buy it for this and I could put X amount in and I could pay off my hard money, like what would be a good deal? What would that look like today?
Okay, I'm gonna keep it try to as simple as possible.
Yeah.
So there's three ways for you to find a deal, right? You can buy it on the MLS, simple. Chances are your margin's gonna be a little smaller because it's the open market. You're gonna compete, but sometimes you do get deals. So that's the easy one, MLS. And you can search up keywords like fixers, cosmetic fixers, investor special, right? So it narrows it down. The second way is what I like to call agent outreach. Agents, and I would even call agents, I'll consider them also wholesalers. So I'm going to bunch those two together. So if you don't know what a wholesaler is, these are the people that will go out, talk to sellers, lock it up, and get it under contract, and then they will sell you the rights to buy that contract and then buy the property. So those are wholesalers. And then realtors, believe it or not, are great sources. We buy a bunch from realtors because chances are most realtors, they go out and they see a house that is filled with garbage, and the owners don't have money to fix it up. They don't have money to move. They don't have money to clear it out or do anything really, and they want it gone. So those realtors, if you have a relationship with them, and that's why you have to treat them like clients and you have to call them all the time, get FaceTime with them and take them out to coffee, they will call you and be like, hey, Brian, I got something right up your alley because the owner needs this price and they don't have the money to do all the other stuff. So they need your help. And then you can buy it that way. So that's the second way. Okay. And both those ways will only take time, right? It's not like you're spending any money. The third way will cost you money. And this is really how you scale your flipping and wholesaling operations. You do need to start paying for either PPC, pay per click, pay per lead, PPL, direct mail, which is you could send out thousands and thousands of mailers. Now there are you will have to buy good data. Don't just use your escrow company because that data is garbage. And then you can send it out. Like personally, right now we're spending around $20,000 a month just on those things. Okay. And then that's how you can get direct to sellers. Now it's your job to then pick up the phone or they'll call you, go out, set the appointment, and then try to get a price that is favorable, right? Now, obviously, in this market, we try to pick up properties around the 60 to 70% of whatever the ARV is, the after repair value. So if the property is worth $1 million, if we can pick it up for $600,000 or $700,000 with a construction timeline of like 3 months, you will make money. Now, how do you maintain a construction timeline of 3 months? Well, you're not pouring a new foundation. I'll tell you that. You're not doing an addition. You're not completely changing out the layout of a house. It will be like for like. So the kitchen, wherever it is, it looks good. You're going to fix up the kitchen. Bathroom, you're going to fix up the bathroom. Paint, flooring, new roof, windows, etc. Right? You do that, you're going to get yourself a pretty good deal, and you will make, or at least you should gun to make 10% of the ARV. So $1 million. If the house was all fixed up, said and done, and it sells for $1 million, your goal should be to make $100,000.
Okay. I love it. Thank you for the breakdown because it's really, I don't know if many people have come on the show and given us like, this is what you should be looking for and this is what you can expect to make. Now, I know it doesn't always work that way, but I like the like for like comparison. Hey, you see the way that a property is laid out. Make an old kitchen a new kitchen. Make the old windows new windows. Make the old bathroom a new bathroom. Like, let's make this as simple as possible. And if you find the right contractors,
Yeah.
this is doable. But to me, it's all about, the buy, right? How do you get the deal? And it sounds like, would you say the best route for you right now has been direct to seller, like mailers?
Direct to sellers are when you make the most money because think of it this way. The moment you have a wholesaler, the moment you have a realtor involved, well, they got to get paid. And so if they have to get paid, you're getting it for a higher price. And so there goes a little bit of your margin, right? Realtor needs to make 2.5%, 3%. The wholesaler is probably going to make around the same. So on a purchase price of, let's say, $700,000-800,000, that's a lot of money, right? That could have went to your pocket if you had just learned the skill to go direct to the seller.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What are your goals for 2026? Like, what are you looking to accomplish as it relates to? I know it sounds like you're passing on a lot of the agent stuff, right? You have a team, right? So do you have whether it's a number of homes flipped? Like, I'm curious on maybe that, and then personally, like your rental portfolio. Do
Yeah.
you have a place you're trying to scale it to?
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So that's a loaded question because I do own 9 companies, and every company does have its own goals, right? And we break it down into one big goal and then 4 90-day sprints. I call 90-day sprints because you have a big goal, but if you don't reverse engineer it, you're never going to hit it. But I would say, starting off with the simple one, I would like to add I'd like to acquire probably $5 million more this year in multifamily, not single family anymore. I have too many single family doors, and it's kind of getting harder to manage. And so $5 million will require me to put 30% down. So I got to come up with $1.5 million to go buy this property. Okay, so that's the first. That's what comes with the wealth building. When it comes to flipping this year, we're not going to flip more. We're probably going to keep it at 12 flips this year, so about one a month. And the reason why is because flipping is it takes too long. The cash cycle is now getting a little too long for me, meaning that I don't get paid for another 6 months. Every flip that I buy, I don't get paid for 6 months later because I got to do construction, I got to list it on the market, I got to go through escrow and then close again, right? So we do 12 solid ones. And to be honest with you, our average flip right now is making anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. So net, okay, that's after paying everything pre-tax. So you guys can do the math there. And then when it comes to actually wholesaling now, that's a fairly new business. We do a handful a year, but I just ramped up the operation. We have 3 acquisition guys, 1 disposition. I hired a CEO and I have a COO of the company. And so with that one, I'm looking to do probably close to 4 to 5 deals a month at $50,000 fees. So
Oh, those are big wholesale fees. Okay, got
well,
it.
that's where we are. I mean, like
Yeah.
I think if you're in the Midwest or you're anywhere else, sometimes you're looking at 25,000 a fee. We're doing about 50, but sometimes with us, we just did one now. It was like 53. We did another one was 200 on
Wow.
a wholesale. Yeah, so little crazy, but we're looking to do 4 a month, right? And the reason why a lot of it is tied to the guys. I want to make sure they're making good money. And so, like, it's not just like, oh my God, this guy just wants to make a boatload of money. But you got to understand that the more money the company makes, and I'm not saying because I don't own 100% of the company, the more money the company makes, the more we can compensate and pay out all the people that got us there. I'm
Yeah.
all about that, right? And so there's that. When it comes to the brokerage itself, we're now at 70 agents. This year, we crossed over $300 million in sales. The goal next year is to surpass 500 million in sales with roughly the same amount of agents. I don't want to get too big. If it grows organically. We don't really go out and like recruit like crazy. So there's that for that goal. But we'll keep it there. I have some goals for the other companies, but that's not really relevant.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm curious about your delegation. You mentioned that you became really good at this, or you learned that you were actually really good at this. And I think in scaling a business, I don't have a massive company. I don't have any employees. Part of me is like, I don't know if I want that, but then if I was good at delegation, maybe I would, right? So talk to me about, hiring a CEO and scaling that way and how you've became somebody that's able to put other people in positions to be successful. I think that's a skill set that I lack personally.
Yeah. So, I mean, no, you don't lack it. I think you just have to rewrite your story, right? And get out all the reasons as to, because you probably have your own beliefs as to why you want to stay small. And I probably know what they are. But let me give you a story to maybe push you to build out your team and delegate a little bit more. So last November, I was hospitalized for a whole month. I was gone the whole month of November. Okay. And I have a scar to remind me of it. Right. So it runs up here and it runs in here.
That's a serious scar. Okay.
Yeah. So I have kids, they get sick all the time and I'm always working. And last year was a growth year. So this is 2024. I was going and trying to do everything, right? Still wake up, go to the gym, be there for the family and build the companies. Anywhere that I needed to go, I would do it. And the only way that you can do that is if you sacrifice sleep sometimes. And that's exactly what I did. And I did have a team at the time. I've always had a team for the longest time. But to fast forward at this, that November came around and I was like, shit, I can't do anything. I'm in a hospital, right? And I'm just sitting there. I'm not. I mean, you can't really do much. You're flipping properties. I can attend a couple meetings, but even then, my brain. I was on so many bags of antibiotics that I just, I'm not sharp, right? Well, guess what? The company ran, revenues ran, everything was just smooth. Everything that I like, the company didn't skip a beat, right? And so that taught me that number one, I actually have a real business. I don't have a job, right? A lot of self-employed people think they have a business, but the moment you take them out, revenue stops, money stops coming in, you have a job, right? And so that's why I tell people you do need to build out a team, because I didn't expect this to happen. I just couldn't wake up. I woke up one day and I couldn't get out of bed. And then it quickly escalated from there, right? Pneumonia led to fluid in my chest cavity. I caught a flesh-eating bacteria that was eating at my tissue. Who the hell, like, I mean, I was fit. Like I was, like went to the gym every day, probably like 12, 13% body fat, not super lean, but, like enough. I wasn't like obese. And that happened to me. So imagine, let me ask you this, and those listening, what if tomorrow you woke up and you couldn't get out of bed for a whole month? What would your business look like? What would your life look like? What would your life look like? What would your children's life look like? I have 2 kids. So I'm like, what does that look like for them? Like this, the fancy school that they go to, the vacations, the lifestyle they have, what does that do for them? And so you have to build a team. So when I got out in December, I went nuts. I started hiring even more people. Now, there's a skill to that too. You got to make sure you actually have money, and every person that you hire produces revenue. Otherwise, you're just going to be going into the red. But that's my thing.
Hey, let me pause the episode real quick. Let me know if this sounds like you. You're making 6 figures, you're climbing the corporate ladder, investing in your 401k and your Roth IRA, and maybe even a brokerage account. But deep down, you're asking yourself, is this really it? Like, am I just going to do this thing for the next 30 years and hope to retire in my 60s? That was exactly us just a few years back. We were curious and excited about real estate, but overwhelmed and without a roadmap. If you fast forward to today, we've built a portfolio of over 80 cash flowing units and grown our net worth to over $2 million. We made it our mission to help busy professionals like you take that same leap and start building generational wealth for yourself and your family. That's exactly why we created the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, a private real estate investing community designed to help you get your first rental property under your belt in as little as 90 days. Inside, you'll get direct access to us, our full investing network, private off-market deals, and our exact playbook, and a community of investors who are closing deals every single week. That first property changed everything for us. We always talk about it. It was the true foundation for building generational wealth. And honestly, if we had access to something like this when we first started, we'd be 10 times further along by now. So if this sounds just like you, click the link in our show notes and schedule a call with me. Yes, me. I'll be taking the calls. We'll go over your goals, map out a plan, and get you ready to close your first deal. Let's get it. That's great advice. I mean, I think I already was answering the question as you were asking. My business, I'm a solopreneur, if you will. I mean, I don't manage the real estate that we own, which is great. I have teams for that. So, I mean, there's some delegation, but like in our every day to day, like my agent business and our mentorship and coaching, I am the business. You know what I mean? Me and Ryan, my partner. So like if we decide to not work, like you're getting me when you're paying for mentorship, you're getting us. And I like to think that that's a good thing for now until we can be able to scale. So if I was away for a month, my business would suffer. And that's interesting to think about. Right. So I it's just something that I'll take away from this and think about, okay, if I really do want to grow, how do I get the right people? Because I think what the thing that small business owners struggle with, even maybe including myself, is that if I'm going to hire somebody, my thought is I need to hire an A player. Well, you got to have the money to hire an A player, right? So how did you go did you start out hiring C players and then they turned into A players as you scaled? Or did you go into the red to hire somebody that you couldn't afford at the beginning? Like, how did that work?
Great question. Well, in the very, very beginning, I hired people that I could afford, and they produce minimal results. But then I also did have them on tasks they were very task oriented, right? My VA would make sure she scheduled meetings, review disclosures, set up my appointments, and then draft offers. Very, very task oriented things. And so that's how you start to learn, like, okay, I'm okay with letting go, because I think that's the first mental block that most people have, is that they don't want to let go. nobody's going to be able to do it better than me. So I'm going to do everything. And then also the other thing is like, if I have to teach somebody to do it, I'm better off just doing it. That is so stupid, because the thing is like, yes, you have to teach them, but you only have to teach them once. And in today's day and age of technology, if you record it, if you need to replace them, you just tell them, hey, watch this video, and that's how you do it. Right. And so now you're buying yourself more time back. And so that's where I started in the beginning. Then you're right. I didn't hire A players. I hired people with A player potential, right? That's the next stage. And that requires a lot of grooming. And the problem with that is that, for every 10 people that you hire, you probably get one or two good ones. And that's okay, because it teaches you to be a leader too. And, The 7 Levels of Leadership is a great book to read, because it talks about the different levels. Well, then now that you're making a little bit more money and you're gaining a little bit more success, I think a great leader learns to cast a big dream and a big vision, right? I think the greatest leaders, Elon Musk, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, when they were building the company, nobody knew what the hell it was, right? It's easy to say it's an electric car company now, whatever, all that stuff. But back then, somebody had to believe. So as a leader, if you can cast a big enough vision, you can oftentimes get A players to take a pay cut because they're buying into the vision and the dream. And I would give you guys a little bonus tip. People leave and or people don't join you because your dreams are not big enough for them to fulfill their dreams. And so as a CEO or a visionary, whatever you want to call it, you need to be able to dream so big that every single person in your organization can achieve their dreams and goals as well, right? I want to be a billionaire. And I never thought I would say that. It's not because it's a money thing, but because if I'm a billionaire, chances are everybody that's in that room outside right now that worked for me can become a millionaire or a multimillionaire or even a billionaire too. But if all I wanted was to make $1 million a year, like the most that my people out there can make is probably like $100,000-$200,000, right? And so again, I had to up my dreams, up my vision, so that their visions and their dreams can come true too.
That's fascinating, because I've always thought to myself, a couple things that I won't sacrifice for money. Health. I've already decided on this, and it's just how I want to live my life. The relationships with the people that I love in my family, I won't sacrifice that for money. Maybe in a future state, I'll think differently. But for now, I'm 34. So I'm like, I'm engaged, going to have kids. I want to be there. However, you just mentioned something to me. Like I've always said, like being a billionaire is irrelevant for me, because I'm like, at what point does the happiness scale turn off? But thinking about it in a different way, it's like, well, it's not necessarily for me. Now, some of it is obviously, but it's for the people that you can bring up with you and how much you're going to change other people's lives. So I think that's a great way to look at it. I want to relate this back to, you mentioned something about your grandmother, how she had all these people around her, like when she passed away or like when she got older. And so is becoming a billionaire for you representative of having a lot of people rely on you and love you and be around you so that you can uplift those other people? Because we're all going to get old and we're all going to die. So it's like, part of me is like, what the hell am I even doing all this for? Right. But
I don't need them to visit me. I just think that at now it's like the more people that you can impact. And I think you said a word that I'm going to change a little bit. If I do it correctly, they will not rely on me. They will be able to be self-reliant and be, when people leave me to start their own companies, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Right. But what ends up happening? Now they become a millionaire, and now I have a millionaire friend. And so when I need help with something or we need to collaborate, I have that resource now. Right. And that's kind of how I look at it. My life probably, yes, of course it would change a little bit, but I think I'm very happy. And I'll tell you right now, money has allowed me more time to be with my family. I do have 2 young kids, and so I don't work weekends, right? But money allows you to do that. Now, how much money, that's up to you to decide. So that's one thing. And then I do realize that you do need a lot of money, because you're 34, I'm 34, but my parents were a lot older. They get very expensive the older they get. And so I got to experience that with my dad. His medical bills were like astronomical. Luckily, the government stepped in. Thank God, USA. Love this country. right? His bill when he died was like $2 million. How the hell is anybody supposed to pay that, right? When my grandma, towards her end of the year, she, like it was $7,000 a month for that caretaker, and she probably we were paying it for, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
So do the math on that, right? Like 7,000 a month, and on top of that, we paid my mom's mortgage, and then we paid her living expenses. So it was probably closer to like $11,000, $12,000 a month.
Yeah. So we're talking
So
150K
if
a
you
year.
140 something thousand
Yeah.
dollars. So if you're out there and you're working an engineer job and you're only making 140 something $1,000, great. You'll probably live a decent life. But what about your mom and your dad? Right. So I challenge you to actually don't think of money as evil or anything like that, but just being real with it, that, if you do truly love the family that you have and the people that are in your life, you're going to need a lot more money. Right. But I have another lesson there that, you need to learn to help yourself first before you help others. Right. And so, because you can't, like, what do they say on an airplane? When those masks drop, put it on yourself and then help the person to your left or right. Because if you can't breathe, or you can't have you're always strapped against the wall, you're never going to be able to make it out. So that's my 2 cents on
Yeah.
why we got to keep pushing and growing and just.
Yeah, I think this is great, and I like talking philosophical type of stuff here because in wealth building comes the mindset that you have to carry forward in order to make it happen. And I just love the perspective because I talk to people all the time that have very different perspectives, and I think that it seems like you're doing it from the right place. Like I do think that there are very, very greedy people out there that end
Oh,
up being
sure.
miserable at a certain point in their life because they've built something that they don't even really want, and they were running from something or they're scared of something. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I've always tried to avoid that in my life because I'm happy now.
Oh yeah.
Like I left my job 18 months ago, and I took a massive pay cut to be a full-time entrepreneur. I'm still happy. I'm not content with my life, with my income level, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So I'm like, all right, I'm on the right path. Like it's working. So I
I
think,
think if you're
right.
happy and you're an entrepreneur now, you're always going to chase growth, and you're going to chase growth because like it's a game, and like a game, you don't want to play level 1 over and over for the rest of your life. You want to start getting to level 2, you want to get to level 3, and there will be challenges. But then, of course, maybe you don't want to get to level 10 because that's like, oh my god, like the boss is too heavy to beat, like he's too hard, and that's okay. But I think going back, you just have to have so much clarity and conviction in what your life looks like, and where you want to go, that just that's where it is.
Yeah.
I mean, just my thing was, like I said, I base everything that I do on my life experience, and so I know everybody else is gonna go through the same shit that I went through. My in-laws are now older. I pay for their housing as well, and then my mom is now in her 70s, so I'm already, in my mind, I'm like, okay, what is this gonna cost? Now again, it's not a burden. It's just how I was raised, and I will take care of them. But I'm like, I'm just being real with what's going on with life, and so I got to go make more money. And but the way that I'm gonna do it is that the more people I help, then the money will come.
Yep.
Right? I'm not just chasing money to chase money to buy more stuff. It's like, let me help you become a millionaire, and I promise if I make you become a millionaire, I'm gonna make something too. Right?
Yeah. I think it's awesome, man. I really appreciate the time and just chatting about this type of stuff. I think my last question is, I think you kind of already answered it, but I'm curious, what is the overarching why? It sounds like the family obviously has a lot to do with it, but just like you get up out of bed every day, you were in the hospital for a month, right? I mean, to recover from that and then accelerate the level that you're working is like an accomplishment in itself. What is the driving, if you had to pinpoint the driving force that gets you out of bed every morning, that is the thing, the why, what do
God,
you think it is?
just one why? I have so many whys. That's probably why I work
Maybe-
so hard, because it's like I don't have one. I mean, my thing is, okay, well, the first thing, you're right. It is family, right? We're very family oriented. I see my brothers every weekend. My nephew works with me, so yes, we're doing this to help family, friends, and all that stuff. That's the first, and then the second would be, you know, like I said, my mom and dad came from immigrant family. They came here and they sacrificed everything. I would be doing them a disservice if I slacked off, got lazy, because they did it for us. So part of me is like, I'm doing it for them, right? I'm not wasting an opportunity that I was given, because that's a sin. I really think that's a sin. And then the third why is that we're playing a game, and I just want to see how far when I'm on my deathbed, because I did have a scare, right? And luckily, I just remember, because when this happened, I was in the ER, and then they rushed me for surgery right away because it was spreading to my chest. If it had hit my chest, chances of survival was very low, and so it was spreading so fast. That was worst case. The next worst case was amputate my arm, and then the third case was this: like they could fix it, and I have all mobility and all that stuff. But it did flash across my mind, and I had my son and my daughter, my wife, and I was like, you know what, honey, like you're gonna be fine. I'm worth more dead than alive because I bought a lot of life insurance. I got to joke a little bit, but and then the next thing was like, am I happy with my life? And then I said, you know what? I was 33 at the time, or 32, because my birthday's in December. I was 32. And I said, you know what? I'm pretty happy with what I did in 32 years. Right. And so if I go, like, number one, you guys are set. I'm sad, but I'm content. And so fast forward, I hope to live much longer. I hope to live, I don't know how to put an age to it, but when I look back at whatever age that is, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, whatever it is, I want to have that same feeling that I gave it my all. I did everything I could to help as many people as I could. I pushed the limits, and I'm happy with the life that I have lived. Now, imagine if I would say this, if I was 64, because I was 32 at the time, and I had only accomplished what I accomplished, I'd be a little bit disappointed in myself, right? And so again, I play all these things in my head, and it just kind of pushes me and motivates me to just keep going. And so that's why I said this didn't happen to me either. This didn't happen to me. It happened for me. And it happened for me so that I can have these conversations with myself, and now have this conversation with you, and hopefully impact whoever's listening to, at least take what I say and just think about it, right?
Yeah. Just try to implement it in some way in their life, whatever that might be. And that's all this
and it might
really
be wrong.
is.
Like I said, no, there's no right or wrong way to live life.
Yeah.
There's really not.
There really is. There's a billion ways to live a life. And I really respect the way that you're looking at it, because I think if somebody in this, sometimes it takes someone like you in somebody else's life for them to be able to believe in themselves the way that you believe in yourself, and wherever that came from. So it's like, if you were to go to work for somebody like Brian, or learn from someone like Brian, you might be able to think bigger about your life. So I think the way that you're going about it, the way that you're leading your people, it's pretty awesome, man. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, like, I feel like I have all these amazing conversations, but it's kind of a cool reset to be like, there are people out there that think a lot bigger. I need to think bigger. I need to think like I can do more than I think I can at this present moment, So it's fun. And if people want to learn more about you, they want to learn how to flip, or they want to follow your journey, or maybe they're in the business and you need new employees. What's the best way for people to...
I'm always hiring, yeah.
Yeah. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I'm very active on Instagram. It's Mr. Brian Tran. And I'm also on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. And so my thing is this. You'll probably see the day-to-day on Instagram. You'll see my quick snippets. Please don't judge me on my snippets. Reels can be as long as you want, but realistically, if I post a 10-minute reel, it doesn't get any views. And so my main thing is, if you want to learn more, just go to the YouTube channel, because that's where I dive deep into a 10, 15, 20-minute video diving into why I said that, what I mean by it. And so follow me there and let's connect, man. It's me in the DMs. So when you message, it is me responding. So let's connect, because here's my thing too. I love quotes. The more hands you shake, the more money you make. And that's why we keep shaking hands, and I'm on your podcast, because I want to meet more people.
Yeah, I love it, man. Brian, this has been amazing, dude. Thank you so much for joining. Very just cool conversation. I love when it just flows and it goes where it goes. So thanks for taking the time today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Before we wrap this show up, I want to leave you with this. If you're listening to the show, chances are you're doing pretty well in your career. You're making maybe 6 figures. You're putting money into your retirement accounts, maybe stacking some cash in a brokerage account, but you're still waiting for that next level. And here's the truth. Waiting just costs you time. Every month you're on the sidelines is another month you could have had a property paying you and another step closer to financial freedom that you didn't take. Ryan and I know this because we stayed on the sidelines too long. We talk about this sometimes. We had the money, but not the guidance. And once we finally got our first property, everything shifted. It was the catalyst that built our entire portfolio and ultimately gave us freedom. And that's exactly why we built the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, to cut out wasted time, just give you the exact blueprint and surround you with a network of people who are closing deals every single week. So if you're tired of waiting and you're ready to finally get your first deal, click the link in the show notes and schedule a call with me. Let's map out your strategy and get you moving before another year slips by.